So my presentation today is going to focus on where CEOs want to spend their efforts and energy over the next little while. My background is human resources, and I can tell you we were very rarely called the Department of Human Resources. There was always something not so good going on, and always left to the HR group. You can tell them, don't worry about it, it'll be all fine. So I thought that it was an interesting opportunity to talk to you about where the corporate world is going and how you can learn more about yourself and your people to make what you need to happen over the next many years. So PwC did their annual survey this year with 1,250 participants, and the information that came back was 2/3% of the CEO respondents want to devote more attention in developing talent pipelines. And from an HR perspective, I can tell you that is so thrilling to know that we're finally going to rise to the top. But it's the talent pipelines that's going to be very confusing for everybody as we go forward. And the reason being, who's in it? So we've got generations that go from pre-46. So we've got people that are in their 70s still in the workforce, right up to the millennials. They're all in there, and they're all going to have to work together. The traditionalists, most have retired from the labor force. Those who are still in it probably had my stockbroker because I'll be working till I have no teeth. They comprise a wealth of knowledge and experience. They view work as an obligation. They respect authority, take rational approaches, produce quality work. When they entered the workforce, they smoked, drank at work, partied a lot with the young staff. They're to be admired. If you ever want to see what it was like, watch Mad Men. And for the women in the audience, Don Draper's not that bad to look at either. But Mad Men, the first time that I watched an episode, I looked at it and thought, this can't be. Like I was grinding my teeth because the way they treated the women in the workforce and the fact that the idea of everybody had a bottle in their desk and they threw it out and drank, whether it was morning, noon, or night. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, it's set in the 60s, so it's quite interesting. Baby boomers, our next group. The largest number of workers to ever enter the labor force because war was over, men were happy, women were happy, everybody was trying to populate the world, and that's what happened. Most of the senior level management positions are the baby boomers. They're seen as focused on work, possessing a strong work ethic, and desire recognition for their efforts. They could wear their shoulder pads in their hair when they were in the, if anybody remembers the 80s, like everybody's got a picture that comes out at a family gathering and you want to crawl under a desk. And at times they were bad dressers. That would be what a baby boomer might think would be a retirement outfit. Gen X. The oldest members could be entering senior level management roles, while the younger ones are approaching mid-career and senior level supervisory roles. Many members embrace technology, diversity, and entrepreneurship. They pay their Amex with their Visa, and they wax their chest hair. That's where the chest hair idea came from. One of the guys waxed his chest. The Generation Y millennials, older members in the labor force, while the younger members are still completing their formal education. So basically some of them are still in high school or school. They're known for being optimistic, goal-oriented. They enjoy collaboration, multitasking, are comfortable embracing emerging technologies. They drive nicer cars than baby boomers. They appreciate a flexible work environment that should look like this. I do know a client that phoned me one time and said, we're trying to bring some new staff on and we're having a bit of a challenge. The last man we interviewed, he's 22, 23, he couldn't work every day of the week. He had to be off earlies on Tuesdays and Thursdays because he had early yoga classes. He said, how do I cope with that? said, I don't know. Keep interviewing. So workforce strategies for talent pipeline development. To survive, companies must rethink their workforce strategies, transform their management and human resources practices to attract, engage, and retain workers of all ages. So the key is we're not going to be watching the 60, 65-year-olds walking out the door. We're going to be trying to capture what knowledge they have, but allow them to work on their terms. What does that look like? Let them take control of their career. Ken Dykewald is a partner with a company that I'm a partner with in the US. And he spent 3 years researching the labor force and says that by 2015, if companies don't embrace this, there will be large organizations that will go bankrupt because they just don't have enough talent. And if they haven't done it fast enough, it's not one of those things that you can start pulling rabbits out of hats. So how can CEOs develop their talent pipelines? Using tools to determine the potential of the individuals. Focus on retention. You've heard all of these before. Use technology. Develop comprehensive mentoring programs. Mentoring programs they've started, but they haven't really taken the kind of focus that they really need to, because there's always this belief that somebody got that. Somebody must have mentored with that person. But then it's when they're gone that they haven't. They realize, wow, we've lost an entire level of senior management. And does anybody know what they even did? Career paths within the company, far, far smarter than outside the company. And when you recognize that some of your staff will all be, they used to have circles where they'd circle newspaper ads. Now they're on the internet. And so if you're not providing that kind of opportunity for them, certainly Generation Y and X, they're moving on. Gen Ys will stay in a job about 1.5 years. Succession planning. Everybody's talking about it. Are they actively doing it? I hope so. Compensation and benefit programs really need to be more focused on the flexibility of what do people want, what do they need, how do we make sure that we keep those people engaged, how do we make sure we are getting the productivity we need because they are comfortable, and whether or not it's senior individuals who do need some kind of a benefit program, then it's necessary to work with those agencies that provide them to you to find out. And international recruitment strategies. Around the world, we can do a lot. Technology has allowed us to do that, and people are far more mobile. And 5 years ago, I became a partner with a company, Profiles International, and this refers to the assessing talent potential. It's really important to understand your people, know what they're capable of doing, know how they behave, know what they're interested in, and create opportunities for them. And we don't have the time. There used to be, we could wait 6-8 months, a year, a few years before there was any real need to focus on, well, what's this person, what do they want? There's generations that somebody got hired in a company, got stuck in an office, and 25 years later they got a watch and they left. That's gone. So what the profile is meant to do is improve communications, improve team performance, build cultures and values. So the assessment itself measures skills, it measures core behaviors, and it measures interests. When the assessment's taken, it's applied to whatever performance model, and the performance model is customizable to determine the fit with the position. So when you bring somebody in, for instance, I did a president of a company, an oil and gas company, and he was a geologist. And I matched him to a geologist and a CEO. And I said, I got some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is you're a damn fine CEO. The bad news is you would have been a terrible geologist. And he goes, no, I was a great geologist. I said, I'm sure you were, but you don't have any of the characteristics other than the skill set. I said, the worst percentage match we can get is 35 and you're 35. So we went through it. And I said, what's important for you to understand is, had your company known this about you, that you had CEO potential, you may not have had to go from this company to that company, this company, because you were in a job where you sold your ideas. Geologists don't tend to sell their ideas. And that's what he did. He sold his ideas, and he was successful because he built great relationships in the company. So he's very different from the rest of the group that were in the geological group. So the assessment itself creates myriad reports to do everything from interviewing to hiring to managing them, performance models for tips on how to work with people, and it's been administered online. So I'm going to give you show you. This is the kind of information that you get. And this is Sally's sample, horrible name, but it's probably worse. I've heard worse. The summary graph for the scores that that individual made from a thinking style perspective, kind of in the middle. 4, 5, 6 is where most people sit in the work environment. The bell curve is like that. So depending on the roles that you have, you can be on either side. The behavioral traits, those behavioral traits that we measure are not who they think they are and not who you would like them to be. These are who they are at the core. And core behaviors were formed from birth till about 12 or 13. So anybody with children in the family, by the time they're 12 or 13, what you got's what you got. And what you got, you're going to be handing on to the workforce. And they're going to have to deal with it. So the behavioral traits for this individual, they're scattered all over the place. When we go through some of the other diagrams, you'll get a chance to see what those mean. And Sally's sample's interest is enterprising, people service, and creative. Where does that fit? What kind of positions would fit for that? Well, there'd be a lot of people that don't know this information that might hire her and put her in the accounting department. Bad choice. Because finance and admin is not one of the top 3. So she will be busy chatting with people. She's a salesperson. She's concerned about everyone's welfare, people service, and she'll want to be creative and come up with great ideas on how we can fix things. But is she at her desk doing her work? No. She doesn't like to do that. So when you have a misfit, you end up with a misfit. So this is, if you combine the two, the performance model for Chief Executive Officer, which will probably be of interest to you. These performance models are validated, and they're validated on a fairly regular basis to make sure that we're capturing still what a CEO requires. So from the perspective of Ms. Sally Sample, from a learning index and from her areas of skills, the only place that she really, really might struggle, she's not ideal, but the one she'll really struggle on will be verbal skill. We tend to believe that everybody that we meet has a similar verbal skill to ourselves. And that's why sometimes people panic when they have to go and meet senior level executives, or they have to go and meet people that are in a boardroom, because they do not have the verbal skills and they're talking over their head. And sometimes they'll get argumentative and you wonder, what's going on here? They're the people that will answer a question you didn't ask, and you walk away going, wow, that was quite an interaction. Maybe I'll go back in around another way and see if I can get an answer. But they aren't really understanding. And we do believe that everybody in the workforce is at the level that we are. Verbal reasoning, high verbal reasoners, which CEOs are, they can cause so much distress with the people around them. Because high verbal reasoners don't think in a sequential manner. They think this thought, you figure it out. This thought, that thought, you figure it out. They just assume that everybody's filled in the spots. And they can walk out of a meeting and the whole table can look and go, what just happened here? Are we doing it or are we not? Those are the kinds of things that high verbal reasoners have to understand about themselves. Get the people on your team to take notes. Ask them, okay, you tell me what I missed. Because high verbal reasoners just don't get it. Because they think in a very, very different manner and they catch on extremely quickly. So from a behavioral perspective, Sally's not that bad. She's got potential. Could she work her way into a CEO position? I don't know. Looks like she pretty well could, except the worst one is objective judgment. So objective judgment is someone who goes on their gut feelings, and we've all met those people. They get really strong gut feelings, and, God help us, most of the times they're right. They are. Those gut feelings they get. If you've got people on the other end of the scale, they need to understand that from the perspective of going into a meeting. I hear this all the time. The recruiters get strong gut feelings. The engineers have none. They go into a meeting, and the meeting's over, and they're scrapping. I didn't get that. Recruiter goes, I was over in 5 minutes into it. How? I went through that. And the recruiter goes, yeah, well, I wasn't paying any attention. But that person has all of this. No, I got a really strong gut feeling. That person's going to cause problems on our team. Or that person is fantastic on the team. I don't know why we had to stay here for an hour going through every line of his resume. So you'll get those two kinds of conflicts on a regular basis. That's all that it is. So I always encourage people, meet in the middle. Recognize who you are and who the person that you're working with is, and okay, all right, we don't need to scrap over this. We're just going to meet in the middle, and sometimes I'll be right, and sometimes you'll be right, except the engineers will always be right. So you'll see from the interests that Sally Semple has one. So she's interested in selling her ideas. If she wants to be the CEO of her own company, she's going to have to hire somebody. Oh, sorry, she's got two, people, service, and enterprise. You're going to have to hire someone to do the finance and admin. And many times, that is the downfall. I will do this for people who have a great idea to the world. They're just so excited about what they're going to be able to do. And then they take this assessment and say, well, who's going to do the selling for you? Because they don't want to sell. That phone is 10,000 pounds. They are not going to pick that thing up. So, simple. Hire somebody. You don't have to do it all. Figure out a way. Find someone. Barter with them. Trade shoes. Do something. Make sure that you've got a way to get that piece done. Because if you've got a great idea and you really want to move something, and this is the thing that keeps you awake at night going, I should start my own company, then if it's the finance admin that's going to kill you, or if it's going to be it's selling, find someone that wants to do it. Okay, so can a CEO be a lion tamer? Well, you don't need to crack your whip just yet. We're going to see. This is the CEO performance model that we use and the lion tamer model. Now, I'm sure you're going, what would an organization who has 1,200 performance models that relate to business have a lion tamer in the middle of it? It's called Las Vegas. They were hired to do a whole troop of people, and if you remember, you know what happened to Lion Tamer. It was not a good thing. He's not taming lions anymore. Anyway, we can compare these. So you'll see the Chief Executive Officer is obviously on the higher end. Where that bell curve moves, the CEO is going to be want to be far more intellectually stimulated than the lion tamer. Like, who does he talk to all day? Lions. So, there's not a lot of conversation going on. They don't need to talk. Energy level, very similar. So energy level, this can get people into problems also. So remember, this is core. This is not who somebody wants you to think they are, which is who you get in an interview. You get wonderful, glorious people who turn out generally to be not that great after on a benefit plan. Energy level, high energy, they like to keep a bunch of stuff going. That's what gives them this excitement. Let's start that, let's start that, let's start that. They don't necessarily, and the higher the energy level, they don't necessarily finish them. So they got a team behind them that's got to do that for them. Get the great ideas, bring them to the end, which is the lower energy level. Lower energy level individuals are more patient, and they like to take this, finish it, do one project, go to the next. So if you're one of those high energy people, you can imagine how you don't understand the person who says, no, I can't take that. I have to finish this one. You're saying, no, we don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's not that big a deal. We want you to start on this. No, I have to finish this. So all of a sudden you've got a conflict, and it's not based on communication, it's based on energy level. The assertiveness, very similar. I'm guessing as a lion tamer, you want to be damn assertive. You gotta know who's boss in that ring. And I guess basically the same in your organizations. Sociability, people, not so much. They don't necessarily feed off people. They probably spend a lot of time. When they need to rejuvenate, they may go to the mountains, they may do exercise, God knows what it is, but they don't have to go to a cocktail party at the end of the day to feel like, yes, I can face tomorrow. Manageability, higher on manageability, the lion tamer just slightly. As you see, they're really not very far off at all. And manageability refers to, do you need policies and procedures? Do you want to fly by the seat of your pants? So 1s and 2s in manageability fly by the seat of their pants. They do what they need to do just to get by. The attitude, very similar. The lower on attitude, those people think they're the voice of reason. For the people on the other end who are going, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, water's coming up over our ankles. It's all good. It's just a small flood. Decisiveness, make your decisions. Interestingly, people who are low and decisive, and as I said, if you're confident in what you do, you can make a decision in a nanosecond. If you're not confident, if you're stressed out, if you're in a new environment, if you're new on the team, if you're a tad awkward about what it all is, the decisiveness can get, and we've all worked with those people. You think, well, what happened? I just gave them a new project to do, and they haven't made any decision, and they keep postponing it, and they keep putting things off, and I just want to know, are we doing it or are we not doing it? That's what happens. People who get stressed when they make decisions are lower down. Higher up in decision making, you'll find that those people make a snap decision right now, not wrong, never go back. So the 1s and 2s and the 9s and 10s need to meet in the middle. Talk to one another. Because if you're going to do something that's going to impact another department, very wise idea. Talk about it. Accommodating, not so much. Accommodating refers to teamwork. Is it all about them, or is it more about the team? CEOs are more focused on themselves and less on the team. They make that somebody else's job. Independence, both highly independent. Now here's the kicker again. The objective judgment. Well, you want the lion tamer to be able to walk into that room and get the vibe of, oh, lion's had a bad day. I'm out of here. Moving on. I'll get out of here. I got a feeling this is not, don't like the look in his eye, don't like the vibes he's given. In the CEO's world, he has to be able to justify his decisions to somebody. Sometimes to the extreme, others not so much. But from the perspective of objective judgment, somebody's going to ask him somewhere, sometime, why did you make that decision? Generally, the higher up, the more detail you'll need to have. So high in objective judgment people, engineers, again, I don't mean to pick on them, but they're so easy. they just have more information, more information, more information, more information. So if you combine that with a 1 on decisiveness, there may be nothing that ever gets done because nobody ever makes that decision. So the CEO, enterprising, and the Lion Tamer is also enterprising, and you can rest assured when you're trying to convince a lion to run through a burning hoop, you better have one heck of a sales pitch. That's what Lion Tamers do. But they resort to their creative ability and their mechanical working with their hands. So you'll see, can the CEO who decides, I've had enough, I'm burnt out, I want to run for the hills, but first I want to be a lion tamer. Yes, absolutely, it can be done. The skills, long as that lion's pretty smart and can engage them in a conversation on a fairly regular basis. The behaviors are similar except for those gut feelings, which is where the CEO could land without them. And the CEO won't last long. They're just not that into it. So could the CEO? Absolutely. They can do any of these skills, but they've got to understand and recognize if they're going to create that as a career path, this would be a hobby, not a long-term career move. So what can CEOs do to fill pipelines? Identify the generations. Keep in mind it's like a family gathering, 4 generations. You better know who you're sitting at the table with. And if your gatherings are anything like ours, some point in time, some old story will come up. You got to move on. You got to get to know them better than they know themselves without having a VP of psychic abilities. Maximize everyone's contribution, surprise them with what they can do, and plan careers within your organization so they got bright futures ahead of them. I will leave you with the Vulcan salute, which I'm sure all of you have seen. Live long and prosper. But I must say I made a mistake in one presentation, and I called it the Taber. The Taber salute, which, of course, no one knew. Anyway, thank you very much. Live long and prosper. I have enjoyed speaking to you. And if you have any questions at all, I'm out at the back, and I have a table full of nonsense with me. Thank you.